What if the things you've spent a lifetime worrying about just stopped mattering? As the years pass, our priorities shift, not because we're giving up, but because we've finally come to understand what truly deserves our time, our energy, and our peace of mind. There's a quiet kind of wisdom that settles in with age. It's not something you find in a book or a motivational speech. It's something you earn by living long enough to know what really counts and what never did. In this video, we're exploring 6 things that become less important or even meaningless after age 70. And we're not just talking theory. These are lived truths grounded in psychology, shaped by experience, and echoed in the voices of older adults across generations. If you've ever felt tired of chasing things that no longer fulfill you or weighed down by expectations that no longer fit, this video is for you. Because each of these 6 things once demanded attention, but now they don't need to. And that's not because you've stopped caring, it's because you've earned the freedom to let go. That freedom isn't apathy, it's clarity. Knowing what's no longer worth your worry makes more space for the things that are: health, purpose, connection, and peace. So if you've ever wondered when life might begin to feel lighter, not because the weight disappears, but because you've learned how to carry it differently, stay with us. These 6 insights might just affirm what your heart already knows, and give you permission to walk through this next chapter with more grace, more confidence, and a whole lot less unnecessary weight. Let's begin, and first on the list is something many of us spent decades carrying: the weight of other people's opinions. When you were younger, those outside voices could shape everything: what you wore, how you raised your kids, what kind of job you took, how your home looked, even whether or not you allowed yourself to rest. It was as if every decision had to pass an invisible test. What will people think? And even if you tried to brush it off, that question had a way of creeping back in. But after 70, something powerful starts to happen. You begin to see those opinions for what they really are: fleeting, inconsistent, and often more about someone else's insecurities than your own worth. The need to be approved, to be admired, even to be understood, it loses its grip. Not because you no longer care about people, but because you've learned to care about yourself more. Let me introduce Evelyn. She's 76 now, but for most of her life, she played it safe. She wore beige when she really wanted color. She kept her hair short because someone once said it was more appropriate. And she bit her tongue far too often at family dinners just to keep the peace. Then one day, after a quiet morning walk, she looked in the mirror and asked herself, "Who am I still trying to impress?" That question changed everything. Now, she wears bold earrings, laughs loudly, and says what's on her heart, kindly but honestly. Letting go of what others might think doesn't mean becoming harsh or indifferent. It means choosing your voice over the noise. It means finally realizing that people will always have something to say, but they'll forget it just as quickly. What stays with you is how you feel about your choices when the day is done. There is something deeply liberating about walking into a room and not wondering if you fit in. That's not arrogance. It's wisdom. It's peace. It's the hard-earned self-respect that only time and experience can give. And once you taste it, you wonder why you ever gave it away in the first place. Just as you begin to care less about what others think, something else starts to lose its grip too: the pressure to keep up with trends. For most of our lives, there's been this quiet, nagging message in the background: stay current, stay sharp, stay relevant. Whether it was fashion, technology, home decor, or the latest health craze, there was always something new we were supposed to buy, learn, or change, just to prove we were still with it. But after 70, that message starts to sound more like noise than necessity. You begin to see trends for what they often are: temporary distractions dressed up as must-haves. They rise and fall so quickly that what was essential last year is already forgotten today. And the truth is, most trends aren't built for your comfort, your lifestyle, or your values. They're built to sell. Psychology even tells us that much of modern marketing works by creating a sense of urgency and inadequacy. It whispers, You need this to belong, or worse, you're falling behind. But the wisdom that comes with age lets you recognize that trick for what it is. You realize that real confidence isn't found in the latest phone, the newest diet, or the most updated wardrobe. It's found in knowing what works for you. That could be a pair of shoes that support your feet, music that brings you back to your favorite memories, or the comfort of a routine that gives you peace. When you let go of the need to stay trendy, you give yourself something far more lasting: authenticity. You stop chasing what's in and start choosing what feels right. That doesn't mean you reject everything new. It just means you adopt it on your terms. If something improves your life, wonderful. But if it doesn't serve your well-being, your comfort, or your peace of mind, it's okay to leave it behind. Because by now you've seen enough to know that what's truly timeless is what genuinely fits you, not just your body, but your spirit too. And there's nothing outdated about honoring what makes you feel whole. And once you stop chasing trends and start choosing what feels true, another quiet shift begins to unfold. You stop carrying the weight of regret. For so many years, it's easy to replay the what-ifs and if-onlys.
The job you didn't take, the words you wish you hadn't said, the relationship you didn't fight harder for. Regret has a way of clinging to the corners of the mind, showing up uninvited during quiet moments, and reminding you of the things you wish you could change. But as you grow older, especially after 70, something inside you begins to soften. Not because the past disappears, but because you finally start to see it differently. You begin to understand that regret is only powerful when we judge our younger selves through the lens of who we are now. And that's unfair, because back then you were doing the best you could with what you knew, what you had, and where you were emotionally. I remember a woman named Marjorie, who's 81. For decades, she carried guilt over not finishing college. Life pulled her in a different direction: marriage, children, and work. She used to wonder what her life might have looked like had she gotten that degree. But one afternoon, while looking through old family photos with her granddaughter, she saw something different. She saw a full life, rich with love, experiences, and impact. And just like that, the what-if faded into a deep appreciation for the path she did walk. Then there's Anthony, 68, who spent years regretting a falling out with his best friend from childhood. They hadn't spoken since their late 30s over something neither of them could fully remember. For a long time, Anthony told himself it was too late. But recently, he decided to write a letter. No expectations, just honesty. To his surprise, his friend wrote back. They talked, they laughed, and they didn't dwell on the past. That one small act didn't rewrite history, but it gave him something far better: closure. These stories remind us that regret loses its power when we meet it with compassion instead of criticism. When you stop scolding your past self and start honoring the choices you made with the heart you had at the time, healing happens. Regret isn't something to bury or ignore. It's something to learn from, gently. It becomes a companion that teaches rather than torments. And it reminds you that your story isn't over. You're still here. You're still becoming. Each new morning is a page waiting to be written, not by the person you once were, but by the person you are now, wiser and more grounded. Instead of asking, "What could I have done differently?" try asking, "What can I do with what I know now?" That small shift in focus can change everything. Because after 70, you don't need to look back with longing. You can look forward with clarity. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect and share in the comments below. What's one regret you've started to make peace with, or one lesson you've gained from your past? Your insight might just encourage someone else who's carrying a similar weight. So if any part of you has been carrying the weight of regret, whether it's big or small, maybe this is your moment to begin letting it go. You don't have to rewrite your whole past to find peace in your present. Just start with grace. If this spoke to something in your heart today, share it in the comments. What's one regret you've begun to release, or one lesson your past has gently taught you? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if this video is helping you reflect
and breathe a little easier, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. We're building a space for wisdom, truth, and encouragement, and your presence here truly matters. And as you begin to make peace with the past, something else begins to fall away too, the urge to compare yourself to others. It's one of those habits we pick up early in life, often without even realizing it. In school, it starts with grades and friends. As adults, it shifts to homes, careers, marriages, children, and eventually even health or retirement plans. There's always someone who seems to be doing a little better, a little faster, or a little more effortlessly. But after 70, you begin to see that comparison is not just unhelpful, it's often based on a story that isn't even true. Because what you see on the outside is never the full picture. Social media, old acquaintances, even casual conversations at church or the grocery store, they offer only glimpses, highlight reels, and sometimes illusions. You start to realize that every person is carrying something unseen, something unspoken, and what looks like success may come with burdens you can't see. Take Linda, who's now 73. For years, she felt like her life was small compared to the people she grew up with. While others traveled, she stayed close to home. While some of her old friends had bustling families and high-profile retirements, she lived quietly, gardening, volunteering at the local food pantry, and spending evenings with a few close friends. But every time she scrolled through photos online or received a glossy Christmas letter, that old feeling crept in. Maybe I missed something. Then one fall afternoon, a friend from high school came to visit. Over coffee, they talked openly, and for the first time in decades, Linda heard the full story behind those shiny updates. Her friend had been struggling with loneliness, regrets, and the constant pressure to appear put together. Linda listened, then shared her own truth. They both cried, and in that moment, Linda realized that her life may not have looked impressive to others, but it felt meaningful to her. That's the shift. You begin to stop measuring your life by someone else's ruler. You no longer need your story to match another's timeline or trajectory. What matters most is not how your life looks, but how it feels to you. After all, fulfillment is not found in comparison. It's found in contentment. And contentment isn't flashy. It's quiet. It shows up in moments that aren't posted online. Sipping tea on your porch, finishing a book that moved you, holding a grandchild's hand, laughing at a memory only you and a dear friend remember. The truth is, comparison robs you of presence. It pulls your attention outward when it belongs inward. And when you finally release the need to stack your life up against someone else's, you gain something far greater than praise. You gain peace. Because your life, in all its uniqueness, has been enough all along. It's not behind. It's not lacking. It's yours. And once you stop measuring your life by someone else's story, you also start tuning in more closely to your own, especially to the quiet signals your body has been sending all along. Which brings us to the next shift that happens after 70. You no longer feel the need to push your body beyond its limits just to prove something. For so many years, we were taught to associate strength with effort, independence with endurance, and value with how much we could do without asking for help. We carried heavy bags, moved furniture ourselves, worked through back pain, and brushed off fatigue like it was a badge of honor. There was always this pressure to keep going, even when our bodies were clearly asking us to slow down. But somewhere along the way, usually after a few hard-earned lessons, you begin to see things differently. You realize that slowing down isn't weakness, resting isn't quitting, and asking for support doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're listening. Frank, now 79, used to be the type who did everything himself. He prided himself on mowing the lawn, trimming the hedges, shoveling snow, rain or shine, sore back or not. Even after his doctor warned him about his blood pressure, he kept pushing, telling himself it was just part of staying active. But one summer afternoon, after getting lightheaded in the heat, he finally sat down, not just physically, but mentally. He looked around his yard and realized something he hadn't allowed himself to admit before. He didn't enjoy the work anymore. He wasn't proving anything to anyone, and he certainly wasn't doing his body any favors. So he made a small but meaningful change. He hired a neighbor's teenage son to help. Now, Frank still spends time outside, but he does it sitting under the oak tree with a cold drink, watching the world go by, and feeling no less accomplished. In fact, he feels more connected to life than he has in years.
That's what happens when you stop pushing for the sake of pride and start honoring your body with the care it's earned. You realize that this body of yours has carried you through decades of work, parenting, grief, joy, love, and uncertainty. It's the same body that held babies, climbed stairs, endured illness, cooked meals, and embraced loved ones. It deserves kindness. It deserves patience. And it deserves to be heard. Listening to your body isn't giving in. It's giving thanks. It's choosing presence over performance. You begin to stretch instead of strain. You move gently instead of urgently. You pause not because you're falling behind, but because you're learning to live more fully in the moments that matter. And perhaps most importantly, you stop feeling guilty for needing rest. Because rest is not the opposite of productivity. It's part of your well-being. After all these years of doing, you've more than earned the right to simply be. So you let go of the need to push. You stop apologizing for your limits. And in that space, you rediscover something profound, peace in your own pace. And as you learn to treat your body with the tenderness it's long deserved, something else begins to shift too. You no longer have the energy or desire to carry old grudges. In earlier chapters of life, holding on to resentment might have felt like protection. When someone hurt you, let you down, or betrayed your trust, staying angry seemed like a way to keep your boundaries intact, to guard your heart from further pain. And in some ways, that anger did serve a purpose. For a while, it gave you a sense of control, maybe even strength. But the truth is, over time, grudges become heavy. Not for the person who wronged you, but for you. Carrying bitterness doesn't insulate you from pain. It traps you inside it. And after 70, you begin to feel just how much space that anger has taken up in your spirit. You notice how it seeps into your thoughts, tightens your chest, interrupts your sleep, and colors the way you speak about the past. Science backs this up. Research from the Mayo Clinic and Harvard Medical School has shown that chronic resentment is linked to increased blood pressure, anxiety, depression, and even a weakened immune system. In other words, your body pays the price for what your heart hasn't released. Forgiveness then becomes not a favor to the other person, but a gift to yourself. It doesn't mean saying what happened was okay. It doesn't mean reopening doors that are better left closed. It simply means saying, this no longer belongs to me, and choosing to set it down. You may not forget, but you can be free. Letting go allows your heart to exhale. It creates room for peace, joy, and connection to return. And it makes space for softness, not weakness, but a strength that's been refined by wisdom. You start to understand that the people who hurt you were often carrying pain of their own, that their actions came from fear, confusion, immaturity, or brokenness. And while that doesn't excuse the harm, it helps you unhook your story from theirs. It's a quiet kind of freedom, one that whispers, you've held this long enough, you don't have to carry it anymore. And so you choose peace, not because they deserve it, but because you do. And when you finally let go of the need to meet anyone else's timeline, something remarkable happens. You begin to live more fully in your own. You stop chasing, you stop comparing, you stop apologizing for where you are. And in that stillness, in that spaciousness, you begin to notice what truly matters. Not the approval of others, not the trends of the moment, not the weight of past regrets or old hurts, but the simple, sacred things that have been quietly waiting for you all along. Health, connection, meaning, and peace. After 70, life doesn't shrink. It clarifies. The noise fades, the pressure lifts, and the wisdom you've earned begins to speak louder than any outside voice ever did. You realize that happiness isn't something to chase, it's something to allow. And when you allow it, it doesn't look like perfection. It looks like presence,
A morning without hurry, a walk without a destination, a conversation that lingers, a breath you don't rush through. These 6 things we've talked about, opinions, trends, regrets, comparison, overexertion, grudges, and deadlines, once felt urgent, important, even defining. But now they don't have to. You've lived long enough to see through them. You've lived well enough to know that letting go isn't giving up, it's growing deeper. So if even one of these truths spoke to something inside you today, we hope you'll carry it with you into the days ahead. And if you're willing, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment and share which one of these spoke to you most.
Your words might be the encouragement someone else needs. And if you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe so we can keep creating thoughtful content that honors your journey. Thank you for being here with us. And remember, the best chapter